Hello and welcome to Pickles Garage. Today we're doing another tool review, this time on the nut splitter set from Duratech. You can find these on Amazon. There's a lot of different versions of what I'm about to show you from Craftsman and all kinds of other providers as well, varying in prices. This one was a little bit more of like a mid-range. It was about 30 bucks and it comes with a set of four. Several others you were getting one for $20, but of course the quality might be a little bit better. It did come in this weird sort of teal box, so I guess at least it'll stand out compared to my other tools. But I will say the most important thing with this, and there's a big warning right there, do not use an impact wrench for this. Mostly just because it's not designed to have that sort of torque on it, and you could damage other things including it, and it could break, and if it breaks in a dramatic way then you can get injured. So don't use any sort of impact tool. So we're just using our big 1/2-inch drive and 3/4 socket for my specific use on this one, and we're gonna go ahead and knock a nut off that I'm having problems with. So first let me show you the problem and then we'll dive into it. This is going to be the size that I use, fairly direct use. You're just going to tighten this as it comes in. It's going to split the nut, but let me show you what the problem I'm working on is. So I am removing the bumper on my 1979 GMC, and I had no issues relatively with 3 of the bolts, but the 4th one is fighting me quite a bit. So I do have it kind of held semi-precariously, but we're going to go ahead and go underneath for the issue side here, and I'm going to show you the condition of the nut. So here we have it right here. This nut actually isn't in really bad shape. The main issue that I'm having, and you'll see a bunch of residue here, so I put a bunch of like rust dissolver on it as well as WD-40, just trying to break it loose, but essentially the threads inside this nut are fused, and even though I can still get a pretty good grip on this side, it's the other side of the bolt that basically is becoming a circle. And so I've tried essentially everything. I of course started with your standard wrench, and that has built towards vice grips, and nothing is really getting me where I need to be. So I've determined that there's nothing else I can do but split the nut, and so I will pop that on here for a second. Hopefully I should have plenty of room to work here, but basically as it tightens, it's just going to drive a wedge between this, and once that breaks loose, then I'll be able to twist this off and get my bumper off. So let me throw it on here. So as I go through this, I'm going to review this in a couple different ways. I'm going to review this as a concept as well as your alternatives. Now, as far as one brand to the next, I say that's probably going to be mostly related to your budget. Naturally, you don't want the absolute cheapest option or one that you can find really poor reviews on, but usually with stuff like this, it's all made generally by the same companies that just rebrand them. So naturally, that's not the case for some of your more well-known brands in most cases, but once you start getting into generic names that you've never heard before, you're going to start finding that they're all basically the same. So to start out with, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it with a ratcheting wrench, but as you can see, it's sort of having a hard time getting a grip where I'm twisting it and it's wanting to roll off of it. And so that's definitely kind of the first weird sign. The other thing is it's rounded like a loop at the top, and so naturally it works with a bunch of different size bolts, but it also makes getting that first groove a little bit of a pain, because like I said, it's just kind of rounding itself off. Because I know if I put a whole lot of pressure on it, then it's just going to roll this way while I'm starting. But the thing is, now the point is at the lower side of the nut, and so rather than it being kind of in the middle like I was hoping for, it's just rolling itself lower down. So that is kind of a weird thing. I don't know if it's still gonna work effectively from this angle, but I'm gonna go ahead and try it. So first few cranks, it's definitely pretty tough. Naturally, a lot of this is gonna come down to the condition of the nut itself. If it's in really bad shape, then this will probably be relatively easy, but the nut itself wasn't in terrible shape. So that's the other thing, is now it's kind of rotating itself around, which isn't great. It does look like it's digging in, but because it's not stuck there, so maybe if this was a nut that had this, the other side of it was firmly planted, then this wouldn't be an issue. But the issue I'm having is because it's loose to the bolt, it's kind of moving around on me. So it's going to be hard to get actual torque. I am going to get one more tool. I'll probably go ahead and try and clamp the other side just so I can eliminate this movement. But I feel like it's going to run into the same issue that I was having previously. So let me get vice grips on the other side, so that way I don't have this rotation movement, and then I'll try and retorque it. So I do now have vice grips on the other side, which I don't love because part of the issues I was having was because the other side was interfering by rotating, and now I'm kind of reliant once again on that holding. So I have switched to a breaker bar, and I would recommend that just because you don't want to deal with breaking your ratchet while doing this. It is making a bunch of noise. It does seem like it's eating into it a little bit. Let me see if I can show you. So something's giving way. Whether it's the tool or the nut, I guess we'll find out. So then, outside of this tool, what are your alternatives if you run into something like this? A lot of people are going to use like a blowtorch, and so they'll just heat the nut until it melts and breaks off. I do think that works in a lot of cases, but of course you might damage other metal around it, or maybe you don't have access to something like that, or it's a little dangerous, I guess, if you're not doing it properly. So, making a wonderful noise at this point. Other alternatives, there is a little bit, because naturally it's rotating around, there is a little bit of room between the bolt and the wall, and so I imagine you could probably cut it as well, but just with where it's at, that would be pretty difficult. It does appear to still be eating in, which is good. I do recommend, so what I have now is I have just your standard pipe, and I have that on the other side of this breaker bar, and so essentially that is giving me even further leverage to get a lot more torque on it. So I'm going to continue cranking away. Hopefully we'll get a split here pretty quick. Oh, I did hear a pop. Again, not sure if that is tools breaking or what breaking. Alright, so now it's really loose. So that should be a broken nut. So let me go ahead and back this off. Okay, so we do have a big split in it. So I'm gonna see if I can rotate this off. Not by hand, but maybe I'll try and get a nut now that there's not as much pressure, and I'll see if I can get it rotated off. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this, so I gotta adjust, because naturally it's a little different size now that it's split. But yeah, see? Now it is completely loose. I still have the vice grips on the other side, so I know that it's not twisting on that end. So this should be unthreading here. Now that it doesn't have any of the pressure. It might not follow the same grooves that it was before, just because it's broken, and most of these threads are all destroyed anyways, but I'm gonna try and twist it off as much as I can. So yeah, I mean, like I said, blowtorch a lot of people are using. You could try and cut it out, but as far as a $30 fix that doesn't have any of the danger of, you know, burning yourself or damaging any of your other stuff, I really gotta say this works. And as far as Duratech is concerned, not sponsored, that's just the mid-range that I got. Seems to do the job. So I think the design of the tool works, and you know, there's no damage to it at all. So I'm just gonna walk these out the rest of the threads, but I do think that works. So hopefully this was helpful if you have a similar situation on yours, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.